The epidemic of malicious fake news and false propaganda that flooded social media over the past year, it's imperative that leaders in both the private sector and the public sector step up to protect our democracy and innocent lives.
So the woman who voted for a war that was sold on a diet of fake news, a war that killed hundreds of thousands of innocent people, is lecturing Americans about fake news posing a threat to innocent people. Give me a break, Hillary. You're the queen of fake news.
This isn't about politics or partisanship. Lives are at risk.
Where was your concern for putting lives at risk when you pushed the fake news that rebels in Libya and Syria were moderate when they were bloodthirsty jihadists? Fake news that led to the deaths and displacement of hundreds of thousands of innocent people and the rise of ISIS. Where was your concern for the 4 innocent American lives lost in Benghazi when you pushed the fake news that a YouTube video was to blame for the attack?
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video.
When Hillary's not pushing fake news to launch wars or cover-ups, she's faking news about being under Bosnian sniper fire to make herself look tough.
I remember landing under sniper fire. There was supposed to be some kind of a greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicles to get to our base. I made a mistake in describing it.
She claimed she misspoke last week and was sleep deprived when she described landing under sniper fire in Tuzla, Bosnia, something that didn't happen. But CBS News has found several times in the past few months when Senator Clinton used the Bosnia trip to try to show her international experience. December in Iowa.
We landed in one of those corkscrew landings and ran out because they said there might be sniper fire.
Then in February,
the welcoming ceremony had to be moved inside because of sniper fire.
Being lectured by Hillary Clinton about fake news is like being lectured by Bill Cosby about not raping women. And the same goes for the mainstream media. Brian Williams is now lecturing us about fake news. Brian frigging Williams.
As we talked about here last night, fake news played a role in this election and continues to find a wide audience.
2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in. I want to apologize. I said I was traveling in an aircraft that was hit by RPG fire. I was instead in a following aircraft.
I mean, what's next? Is Lance Armstrong going to start lecturing us about performance-enhancing drugs? Your whole narrative is already collapsing. The Washington Post was forced to admit that it couldn't vouch for the validity of its hokey Russian propaganda blacklist. The list that their entire story was based on. A list that included even left-wing websites that were critical of Hillary Clinton. That's why they were included on the list. This, after the first fake news list they put out was discovered to be the brainchild of a far-left social justice warrior feminist with a clear bias. You're not fooling anybody. It's obvious what you're trying to do. You're pointing at opportunists who put out fake news to make money and then lumping them in with InfoWars, Breitbart, Zero Hedge and everyone else to try and discredit us because we kicked your ass. You lost the election, not because of fake news, but because your message failed to resonate with the American people, and ours did. And yes, we may make mistakes from time to time. We're not perfect. The difference is that when you deliberately put out fake news, it leads to death and destruction on an industrial scale. It's your fake news that puts lives at risk time and time again. It was your fake news narrative about Islamophobia that inspired the Ohio State University terrorist to ram his car into and start slashing away at a dozen innocent people. Yet the media expressed 100 times more moral panic about the Pizzagate gunman who injured nobody. It was your fake news narrative about hands up, don't shoot that led to violent riots and looting in Ferguson.
We have dead cops because of that hands up, don't shoot lie. We had 2 in New York. We also had 5 in Dallas and some in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, people who were trying to avenge for the life of Mike Brown, who was a thug. There are dead cops because of that fake news story out of Ferguson, Missouri.
It was your fake news about a deceptively edited audio tape in the Zimmerman case that fueled racial tensions across the country. It was your fake news narrative about 1 in 5 women being raped on college campuses that led to numerous fake news stories about rapes on college campuses that never happened. Hoaxes that ruined people's lives.
And this week, police said they found no evidence to support what Jackie told the magazine about being raped and assaulted.
It was your hysterical fake news narrative about Donald Trump being the next incarnation of Hitler that fueled riots and violent attacks against Trump supporters across the country.
There he goes again. These mass protesters are destroying anything they see.
It was your fake news narrative about Hillary Clinton's victory being inevitable that made you look even more untrustworthy than you already were. Most of the prostitutes pushing this fake news narrative were the same ones caught in bed with the Clinton campaign before the election. The same ones who pushed the fake news narrative that the WikiLeaks emails were fabricated or doctored.
I haven't spent a lot of time reading through WikiLeaks emails, but I will tell you this, what we know is that many are not authentic.
Total BS. Yet the mainstream media gave these prostitutes a platform to push this fake news narrative time and time again. That was you. Not Macedonian teenagers or Kremlin operatives, that was you. As The Intercept reports, this whole fake news bandwagon was actually launched by a Hillary Clinton supporter called Marco Chacon. Chacon specialized in creating blatantly fake anti-Clinton frauds with the goal of tricking his opponents into citing them so that they would be discredited. He was responsible for fabricating the bucket of losers quote. But these prostitutes were so eager to demonize Trump that they started circulating Chacon's fake news as evidence that the Podesta emails were falsified. So the same idiots who are now pointing fingers at everyone else and screaming fake news were the first to actually circulate and amplify the fake news that the Podesta emails were doctored. The media's fake news narrative has been completely debunked, yet Google, Facebook, and Reddit are already censoring discussion of certain topics anyway. And isn't it funny how this fake news narrative just suddenly emerged after an election cycle that saw a complete collapse in trust for the mainstream media, with Trump actually making that distrust of the media part of his campaign.
And this crooked media, you talk about crooked Hillary, they're worse than she is.
Do you think they really care about stopping fake news? Or do they just want to silence their competition? Because every indication clearly suggests it's the latter. They're still doing everything they can to delegitimize Trump's presidency. But the riots failed. The threats to electoral college members failed. Jill Stein's recount failed. And just like their new narrative, that the Russian government was to blame for absolutely everything, this fake news narrative will fail.